Lyra Cade felt every stare the moment she stepped through the arrival gate. The portal dissolved behind her, leaving her inside the atrium of Galaxis Academy of Interstellar Excellence, a hovering citadel surrounded by thin rings of energy hanging above a pale green planet. Students of dozens of species filled the space. Some glided, some slithered, some floated like drifting lanterns. Lyra walked. Walking wasn't normal here. Gravity on Virka was gentle, making the other students look like loose fabric in the wind. Lyra's stride, shaped by Earth's crushing pull, struck the deck with controlled certainty. Her steps had weight. She adjusted her backpack strap and kept her expression neutral. Her heart didn't match her face. Don't stand out. Don't show fear. Don't show teeth. Apparently that looks predatory. A holographic projection pulsed above the entrance. Welcome new students. Harmony through excellence. Harmony. Lyra snorted internally. Harmony was easier when the entire student body didn't assume your species was feral. She passed 3 feathered students with elongated necks. Their voices were soft and musical. That's her, one whispered. Human, Deathworlder. I heard they punch animals for fun. Lyra pretended she didn't hear. If she corrected every rumor, she'd accomplish nothing. She reached the registration platform, where a tall instructor with mirrored wings stood waiting. His feathers clicked like polished glass. State your name for identification, he said. Lyra Cade, Earth, Terran habitat. A pale light scanned her. Data scrolled across a wide display. Lyra Cade. Human. Deathworld classification confirmed. Physical index, red level, restricted. Murmurs spread in an instant. The instructor furrowed his brow. Your reflex score is unregistered. We must test. Is that required? Lyra asked. Yes, standard procedure. His wing flicked sideways. A small sphere detached from the ceiling. Lyra hadn't even blinked before. Shwoom, the sphere launched straight at her face. Instinct took over. The world thinned to a pinpoint. Her hand snapped up faster than thought. Crack! The sphere stopped against her palm. Crushed. Silence dropped over the atrium. Lyra gently lowered her hand and placed the remains of the device on the counter. It startled me. The instructor's wings twitched. Maybe an alien version of swallowing. Reflex certified? Someone in the crowd muttered, stunned and quiet. No blink. Not even a blink. Lyra stepped aside, eager to escape the attention. The less they talked about her, the better. Earth's diplomatic mission depended on it. Blend in, calm, non-threatening, if only her biology cooperated. Housing Deck 9 smelled faintly of ionized air and citrus. Doors lined the curved hallway, each pod identical. Lyra found hers, Unit 917. When she entered, the door sealed itself quietly. The pod was clean and minimal. A sleeping alcove, a work surface, a small shower unit. Enough. She exhaled and dropped onto the sleep slab. The mattress shifted to support her weight, surprised by it, most likely. Humans were heavier than they looked. She rubbed her brow. Just get through today without any more incidents. A soft vibration pulsed through the floor, someone approaching. The pod's notification light flickered red. She stood and opened the door. 3 figures stood outside. They didn't walk here. They waited. The leader was tall and reptilian, scales matte black, shoulders broad enough to block the hallway. His crest rose in a slow display of dominance. His eyes were cold gold. Zeril Threx. Lyra had seen his name during briefing. Academy Combat Division. Rank holder. That alone made her pulse tighten. Behind him stood a thin insectoid with blade-like forearms and a gelatinous creature that shifted like melting glass. Zeril smiled without warmth. You're the human. Lyra kept her posture relaxed. Lyra Cade. That reflex test was entertaining, he said. Fast hands. Or maybe just panic reflex? It was just a reaction. He leaned closer, his claws clicking against the wall beside her head. Not touching, just boxing her in. Students here earn status through arena ranking, he said quietly. I hold the top position. I don't like unknown variables. I'm not here to challenge anyone, Lyra replied. Calm, steady. The insectoid tilted its head. She lies, the gelatinous alien rippled. Maybe she's too scared, Lyra met Zaral's gaze. I want to focus on classes, not fights. Zaral smiled, slow and sharp. That's adorable. He reached toward her shoulder, casual, invasive, testing. Lyra shifted her stance half an inch. When his hand touched her, her body responded before her mind caught up. Her arm cycled through a motion too small for most eyes, a spiral roll of wrist and shoulder that redirected the contact. His hand twisted back toward him, locked against the wall. Zaral's breath caught, not loud, just enough that the two behind him froze. Lyra released him instantly and stepped back. I don't like being touched, she said. It won't happen again, Zaral muttered, more to himself than to her. His crest trembled, not from pain, from confusion. Lyra stepped inside her pod, docker sliding shut between them. She leaned back against it and closed her eyes. Great. Day one, and I've already made a problem. The academy moved on a strict cycle. By late shift, Lyra was in orientation again, this time in a lecture hall. Instructor Valix paced in front of a massive screen. You are here because your worlds consider you assets, he announced. Your conduct reflects entire species. Every misstep echoes across systems. Lyra swallowed. That reminder hit differently when you were the representative of a planet everyone feared. As the briefing ended, she packed her tablet and filed out. She moved with the crowd. Careful not to brush anyone. Voices carried. She didn't blink when the drone hit. Her. I heard her species fights predators. Barehanded. Absolutely feral. Lyra ignored them and headed toward the transit tube. Halfway there, she felt it. The air changed. Not colder, denser. Like a storm building over her shoulder. Zaral stood at the intersection ahead, leaning casually against the wall. The hallway lights caught his scales, turning them into dark armor. The insectoid and the gelatinous one flanked him. He blocked. The path with the kind of silence that wasn't accidental. Lyra stopped. He straightened and offered a thin smile. Orientation. Ends tomorrow, he said. We like to welcome new students in the training dome before the next cycle. No thanks, Lyra said. You misunderstand. Zaral stepped closer, voice lowering. This wasn't an invitation. He leaned in, and his breath smelled faintly metallic, like blood on cold steel. You'll come, alone. Lyra didn't move, didn't show tension. You don't want to do this, she said. Zaral's grin widened. We'll see. He turned and walked away, tail scraping the deck, companions following. When they rounded the corner, the lights seemed to brighten again. Lyra exhaled slowly. Her chest felt tight. She should contact Earth's liaison, report a threat. But she knew what the answer would be. Handle it diplomatically. Don't escalate. She returned to her pod, lay down, and stared at the dim lights hovering above. She wasn't afraid of Zaral. She was afraid of what she might do if he pushed her too far. Sleep didn't come easily. Far away, in a dark corridor, Zaral and his companions entered an access lift. The insectoid whispered, What if she's dangerous? Zaral chuckled, low and sure. No one is dangerous in zero-gravity training. We control the environment. He pressed the access code for the restricted arena. She'll learn her place. The lift doors closed with a hiss. Lyra didn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Zaral's expression, confidence sharpened into something predatory. She tried breathing exercises, replayed diplomatic lessons, anything to ease the tension coiled inside her. Blend in. Don't escalate. Don't show what you are. That had been the instruction drilled into her before she ever boarded the shuttle leaving Earth. At 0400 station time, her pod lights dimmed to morning mode. Lyra sat up and tied her hair into a tight knot. She looked calm, determined, normal. None of it reached her pulse. The cycle schedule showed regular classes, but a flashing notification appeared on her desk tablet, private training session, Dome 7. 051, no instructor listed. No approval signature. 0. She should ignore it. Walking into a private arena was the kind of mistake horror stories began with. But if she didn't show up, they wouldn't stop. Avoiding the confrontation would only fuel the rumors. She took one slow breath. Let's get this over with. The path to Dome 7 wound through the lower decks where lighting was dimmer and foot traffic vanished. The air smelled faintly ionized. Machines, not people. Lyra's footsteps echoed against the smooth flooring. The hallway ended at a sealed bulkhead. A biometric pad pulsed. Waiting. Lyra hovered her hand above it. Don't go in. Then she remembered how Zeral's hand had pressed the wall beside her. How his smile had promised ownership of the situation. She placed her palm on the pad. The lock disengaged, sharp and final. The bulkhead slid open. Inside was a cavernous spherical chamber. Gravity control nodes lined the walls like constellations. The air was still faintly metallic. A few training drones floated in standby mode. Zeral stood in the center with his arms folded. His companions flanked him. The insectoid's forearms gleamed like blades. The gelatinous one pulsed in anticipation. Lyra kept distance. She didn't step into the exact center of the room, never give an opponent the advantage of encirclement. You came, Zeral said. His voice echoed slightly, amplified by the curved dome. You requested a meeting, Lyra replied. Calm, controlled. We requested a demonstration. He gestured around the chamber. Zero gravity. No footing advantage. No leverage tricks. Your Deathworld instincts won't matter here. Lyra kept her voice level. I didn't come to fight. That's the point, Zeral answered. Weakness leaks from your words. The insectoid tapped a control panel and a soft hum filled the room. The gravity faded, weight slipped from Lyra's body. Her feet floated off the floor. Zeral and his gang had practiced in this environment. Their bodies adapted immediately, moving with slow, efficient motions. Human bodies weren't designed for anti-gravity. Lyra drifted, off balance for a moment. 3 smirks. See? Zeral lifted his chin. Just another fragile myth. Lyra steadied herself by brushing a fingertip against a wall node. She anchored her breathing. Earth training hadn't included zero-gravity combat, but humans had something these students didn't. Adaptation wasn't a skill. It was survival. You think reflex means violence? Lyra said. It doesn't. Zeral spread his claws. We'll find out. He nodded once. The insectoid lunged first, a blur of blades slicing through the weightless air. Lyra rotated her body just enough for the blade to skim past her face. Even here, instincts woke. Calculate trajectory, reduce movement, conserve energy. She caught the insectoid's arm, guiding the swing past her, using the momentum against him. A simple redirection. No strike. The insectoid careened into a wall panel and stuck there. Limbs splayed. Zeral's smirk faltered. Lyra drifted back. Palms open! I don't want to hurt anyone! The gelatinous alien shot forward, mass shifting, trying to smother her. Lyra inhaled sharply. Gelatinous species could suffocate without leaving marks. She twisted sideways, caught a wall handle, and hauled herself sharply downward. The gelatinous alien missed and crashed into a gravity node. It sparked and flickered. 2 down. Zeral stared, disbelief carving through ego. You're not lucky, he said slowly. You're trained. No, Lyra answered. I'm alive! Zeral tapped a wristband. 4 defense drones activated, red lights igniting in unison. They formed a closed perimeter around Lyra, weapons humming. Zeral's grin returned. You dodge 1 attacker. 2, if you're lucky. But drones don't get tired. And I want to see the moment fear hits your eyes. Lyra closed her own for half a second, centering breath. Calm. Slow. Let her heartbeat settle. The drones attacked at once. Red streaks flashed. Her world narrowed again, not to panic, but to precision. Every sound, every motion, every vibration became data. Lyra spun through the air, letting her body follow the physics rather than fight it. A drone passed too close. She touched its edge and pushed. The motion sent both of them spinning in opposite directions. She used the momentum, bracing lightly on the drone's casing to launch toward the next one. Open palm to its sensor. Power down. A 3rd drone fired. Lyra tucked, letting the plasma pass so near the heat brushed her cheek. She hooked her foot under a wall rail and dropped on the drone from above, gripping its stabilizer arm. A twist, a click, disabled. Only one drone remained. Zaral's smugness died. Lyra held still in midair. The drone locked onto her chest. It fired. She exhaled and let her body fold, not bending back but breaking the angle. The bolt passed under her ribs. Her hand snapped out, catching the drone's body. With a tiny shove, she redirected its momentum into the gravity node. The core vibrated. Bead. Crack. The drone died. All four floated in a loose halo around her. Lyra's chest rose and fell with controlled breathing. No trembling. No adrenaline crash. Her voice came out quiet. Are we done? Zaral stared at the disabled machines, disbelief spreading across his features. I wasn't finished, he hissed. He launched himself forward. He telegraphed the movement. Too quick, too emotional. Lyra didn't even think. Her hand came up, connecting directly with his sternum. She pushed. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't forceful. It was efficient. The smallest transfer of direction in zero gravity sent Zaral's huge frame backward at speed. He slammed into the wall, claws scraping against the smooth material. Stunned. Lyra floated there, expression unreadable. Zaral's eyes held anger, then something deeper. Recognition. You're dangerous, he rasped. No, Lyra replied. You cornered someone you thought was weak. Humans are unstable. Humans survive. Silence filled the dome. Zaral's companions slowly peeled themselves from the walls, eyes wide with a kind of reverence disguised as fear. Lyra pushed toward the control panel and tapped the gravity back on. Weight rushed into her bones. She planted her feet solid, grounded, while the other students stumbled. Zaral hit the floor on one knee. Lyra stood over him. I told you I didn't want to fight. She walked to the exit. Before the door opened, she stopped and looked back just once. Her voice was steady. Not a threat, just truth. Next time you corner someone weaker, ask yourself if they're actually weaker, or just holding back. She left without waiting for a reply. Behind her, no one moved. Zaral stared after her with shaken certainty. Chest heaving. For the first time, he understood. The human wasn't prey. She was choosing not to be the predator. Lyra expected disciplinary charges the moment she stepped out of Dome 7. What she didn't expect was the academy-wide alarm. Level 3 security event detected, training Dome 7. All active feeds. Quarantined for investigation. A dozen holographic screens flickered awake in the hallways, and students gathered in clumps, whispering. Lyra kept her head down and walked toward her pod. She hadn't run. She hadn't escalated. She had defended herself and left, but she knew what it must look like to everyone else. Human Predator Attacks Group. Rumors traveled faster than oxygen in the ventilation system. By the time she reached Housing Deck 9, dozens of students had already seen a partial leak of the feed. They stared like she carried radiation. That's her. I heard she threw Zaral across the dome. No, the footage shows nothing, just bodies moving. She didn't throw him. She blinked, and he flew. Lyra forced her door open and slipped inside. Her hands trembled. Not from fear, adrenaline crash. Silence in the pod felt too tight, like the walls were listening. She washed her face at the sink and stared into the mirror. I held back. I didn't hurt him, so why did the guilt feel like lead? A sharp tone vibrated through the room. Her desk tablet lit up. Mandatory summons. Council chamber, 3 immediate. No explanation. Lyra inhaled, stood straighter, and opened the door. Time to face whatever came next. The council chamber was shaped like a half-moon, dim and cold. 6 representatives of major species sat elevated behind translucent panels. Instructor Valek stood near the center, wings closed against his back like folded blades. Zaral was there too, sitting on the lower bench, shoulders tense. His face carried no anger, just quiet shock. His companions stayed several seats away, avoiding eye contact. Lyra stood alone on the floor. A spotlight isolating her, Valek began. Student Cade, You were present during a restricted training session that triggered security protocols. Lyra nodded. Yes, sir. Do you deny engaging in combat? I defended myself. Nothing more. A counselor, a translucent being of shifting gas, leaned forward. Explain the footage. Lyra blinked. Footage? Felix flicked his hand. A projection activated. A hologram replayed the dome. Event from a fixed angle. 4 drones activated. A blur of light. Twisted through them. Bodies flew. Panels dented. Isolated impacts echoed. Not once, not even one frame, did the recording show Lyra's movements clearly. She appeared in one spot, then another with impossible displacement. She wasn't a fighter in the footage. She was an anomaly. The gas being spoke again. Our sensors detect no teleportation, yet visually she appears to vanish repeatedly, Lyra swallowed. Zero gravity reduces resistance. I use momentum. That's all. Zaral's voice was low. She didn't strike anyone. All heads turned to him. Zaral continued slowly as if the truth surprised him. She redirected. We attacked. She allowed us to move past her every time. Lyra didn't expect him to speak in her defense. She kept quiet. Instructor Felix addressed her directly. How did you disable 4 drones without direct contact? I touched them, Lyra answered. Just not long enough for the camera to catch. The counselors conferred silently. Finally, the oldest member, a silver-skinned elder of the Alliance, spoke. Lyra Cade. What exactly did your species evolve for? She never liked this question. Humans weren't proud of their past. They were shaped by hunger, storms, predators, war, choices forged by desperation more than virtue, but pretending didn't change reality. She chose honesty. Earth is a world that never cared whether we lived, Lyra said. Everything bigger, faster, smarter, stronger, wanted us gone. We survived by being adaptable. We learned patterns. We adjusted. We endured. She lifted her gaze, steady. We don't evolve into the best killers. We evolve into what we need to be. The elder studied her. Your restraint was intentional. Yes, why? Because power without control isn't strength, Lyra said. It's destruction. Silence filled the chamber. The gelatinous student suddenly stood. She could have killed us. Zaral placed a hand on his shoulder. Not harsh, just firm. She didn't. That seemed to shift something. The insectoid nodded slightly, mandibles lowering. The power dynamic they worshipped had inverted. Not from dominance. From discipline, Felix approached Lyra. You are not being expelled, he said. Her lungs finally released the breath she'd been holding. But, he continued, from this cycle onward, you are placed under controlled observation during training. You will instruct other students in adaptive combat technique, under supervision. Her mind stumbled. You want me to teach? The elder nodded. You demonstrated skill without intent to harm. That is a rare combination. Lyra didn't know whether to laugh or sit down. From the corner bench, Zero spoke again. Lyra. She turned. His voice lacked arrogance. You beat me without fighting. I avoided fighting, she corrected. He lowered his head, not a bow, but close. His crest flattened in acknowledgement. I misjudged you. Lyra considered him for a moment. Most people do, the chamber dismissed. Students parted when Lyra exited. Not because of fear, but because of uncertainty. They had watched her dominate, but without aggression. That challenged their entire hierarchy. Felix matched her pace. You handled yourself well, he said. I didn't want any of it to happen, Lyra replied. Yet it did. You cannot control how others see you, only how you respond. She stopped walking. The window beside them revealed Virka below, swirling clouds, pale oceans. Why keep me here? I'm a risk. Felix looked at her with something almost like respect. The galaxy has never seen a species that chooses peace despite being built for survival. He tapped his wrist pad. A new classification appeared. Human Threat Index. Updated from Moderate Risk to Apex Class, Controlled. Lyra stared. Felix said, Apex is not a label for power. It is a warning to others. Do not provoke what prefers restraint. He walked away. Back in Housing Deck 9, Lyra reached her pod. The hall was unusually quiet. A voice came from behind. Lyra. She turned. Zaral stood alone. No entourage, eyes less sharp. I've been trained since childhood to dominate, he said quietly. But you showed more control in one moment than I have in years. Lyra didn't answer. He exhaled. I don't want to be your enemy. Then don't corner people to prove strength. He nodded. Once. A real acknowledgement. See you at training. Instructor, he left. Lyra stepped into her pod. The door slid shut, sealing her in the small, quiet space. For the first time since arriving at the academy, her muscles finally unclenched. She sat on her sleep slab and whispered to herself, I didn't come here to be feared. Then she allowed herself the smallest smile. But I will be respected. Outside, the academy updated its internal announcement system. Attention students. Human student Lyra Cade will lead adaptive combat practicals. Attendance is mandatory. Far across campus, whispers began not of fear, but of awe. The human hadn't dominated. She had chosen not to. Lyra never imagined her second week at Galaxis Academy would begin with an audience. The combat hall, once Zeral's throne, was filled with students from every species. Energy nodes hummed overhead. Holographic observation screens floated in the air, projecting data streams, and centered on the main platform waiting for her was the podium labeled Instructor. Human Adaptive Combat Practicals. Lyra stepped toward it, heartbeat steady. She didn't belong on a platform like this. She came here to blend in, not stand out. Yet every eye tracked her. Species with exoskeletons clicked mandibles. Feathered students twitched their wings. A few mammals lowered heads in submission. Lyra cleared her throat. Let's get something straight, she said, voice calm. I am not here to show dominance. A faint hiss of disbelief ran through the crowd. I'm here because I did everything I could not to fight. And it wasn't enough, she raised her chin. So, I'll teach you what humans have. Learned the hard way. How to survive without becoming the monster. The room quieted. Lyra locked eyes with the nearest student, a sleek amphibian named Solon, whose species was known for speed. He stood at the front of the class as volunteer, shifting nervously. All right, Lyra said. Come at me, Solon blinked. What now? Yes, but your classification, it's a demonstration, she said. Not warfare. Solon inhaled and dashed forward, limbs fluid. Lyra watched the motion, not the body. Direction, intention, momentum. Those told her everything. She stepped diagonally. Precise angle, minimal effort, and placed a palm on his elbow. She guided his momentum past her. Solon rolled into the landing mat, unharmed. The entire room gasped. Lyra spoke evenly. Step 1, don't match force. Redirect it, a crystalline student raised a trembling hand. Humans do that. Naturally? No, Lyra replied. We do it because we grew up needing to conserve energy. Smaller bodies, bigger threats. A whisper followed her words down the first row of seats. Not predatory. Efficient. Lyra called the next student. An armored brute from the Voltor species lumbered forward. 7 feet tall, bulk like a walking tank. His fists were larger than Lyra's head. He cracked his knuckles. Do I charge? If you want. He did. The Voltor barreled forward like a battering ram, straight-line momentum, overconfident. Lyra didn't dodge. She stepped inside his reach, hands moving in a small circle around his wrist. She used one finger, just one. She redirected his arm down and past her hip. His own weight yanked him forward. He stumbled and crashed into the mat. Gasps erupted from every species present. Lyra stepped back, breathing steady. Size doesn't decide the outcome, she said. Angles do. Zaral stood in the observation tier, silent. His crest lay flat, not submission, but contemplation. He wasn't trying to reclaim power anymore. He was studying, and Lyra, without intending to, was teaching him too. After the demonstration ended, students spread around the mats to practice. Lyra moved from pair to pair, adjusting wrist rotations, correcting stance, guiding them through motion. To her surprise, they listened. One Serpentine's Athari hesitated before approaching. "Human?" he asked quietly. "You can just call me Lyra." The Zathari nodded. "Teach me how you stayed calm when surrounded." "My species becomes overwhelmed easily," Lyra considered. Calm wasn't natural. It was built. "Don't focus on the whole threat," she said. "Focus on the next breath. One choice at a time." The Zathari absorbed her words as if she'd offered a key to something long locked. Others gathered around. "How did you know where they'd attack from? How did you sense movement behind you? How did you avoid collateral damage?" Lyra answered simply, "I watched them. I listened. And I chose control. Control." The word echoed through the room like a new standard. Hours later, after the training cycle ended, Lyra returned to Housing Deck 9. Exhaustion pulled at her shoulders. But it carried a different weight now, earned effort. Not anxiety. Her pod door opened with a soft hiss. She froze. Someone sat inside. Zero. Not looming. Not arrogant. Sitting cross-legged on the floor, hands visible, posture open, Lyra stepped inside cautiously. The door shut behind her. "If this is another challenge," she began. "It's not." Zero lowered his gaze. Something she'd never seen from him. "I was trained my whole life to prove dominance, to win by force, to take what I wanted." His voice was steady, but stripped of ego. "But what I saw in that dome wasn't domination." He lifted his head. It was mastery. Lyra crossed her arms. "You want another lesson?" "No," he shook his head. "I want you to understand something." He stood and placed his palms behind his back, the stance of formal respect in his culture. "We fear your kind because we cannot predict you. You don't escalate. You don't posture. You respond only when necessary." Lyra softened. "Humans aren't unpredictable. We just choose." Zaral met her eyes. "That's what terrifies everyone." He stepped aside, making space near the door. "There will be more challenges. Students will test you, try to prove themselves, try to break what they fear." Lyra exhaled. "I know. Then let me help you." She blinked. "You?" He nodded once. "My species respects strength. But we respect those who choose mercy more." Lyra studied him for a long moment. The bully who cornered her in the dome was gone. What stood before her now was a soldier. Someone who had been humbled and rebuilt. "Fine," Lyra said. "Terms?" Zero smiled slightly. "No teeth, no threat, just acknowledgement. We stand together. If anyone tries to corner you again," he paused, crest rising with quiet pride, "they'll answer to me." Lyra felt something unexpected. Relief. "Deal." He moved to leave, then hesitated at the door. "I never apologized." "For the dome," Lyra nodded. "Apology accepted." Zaral placed a fist to his chest, a salute from his species, and walked out. The door shut behind him. Lyra sat down on her sleep slab, muscles finally relaxing. She let the silence wrap around her like a blanket. She had arrived on this station afraid of becoming a threat. Instead, she had become a standard, not by force, by restraint. She whispered into the quiet, voice steady. "I didn't come here to dominate." Her reflection in the pod's small mirror held its ground. "I came here to show what humanity actually is. Not the apex predator they feared. The apex choice.